How's the squad shaping up?
Fine, yeah. I think maybe just one slight injury concern from Saturday, which isn't a big one. It was a dead leg. Ewan Wilson, young Ewan Wilson, came in. He done well, but he did take a kind of heavy knock. I'm hopeful he'll be okay. And other than that, it's just working towards trying to get that squad set that we want for the longer term. It takes a bit of time. We know that there's still a fair bit of time in the window. But no, in general, the health check of the players that were involved in Saturday's good, and I would be hopeful of making one addition to that as well, into that squad.
Okay. A quick turnaround for you, what are you expecting this game?
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround. I think we've prepared properly. We were late back on Saturday night, understandably, coming back from Elgin. I mentioned it after the game, we had an unbelievable support and the following there. But it's a long journey back, and we were in early yesterday morning, so we decided we would come in and do our work on the Sunday. Guys that didn't play had a bit extra work, and then there was a recovery session for the players that played, and it's just kind of always my belief that that's the right way to do it, getting into the game on the Tuesday. And we'll set our team up as we always do. We'll name the starting 11 today, and we'll make sure that we're set for what will be a tough game. I know that Marvin Bartley's come in there and had pretty good success in the period of time he's come in. He's obviously trying to put his stamp on the football club. We're kind of limited in what we know with regards footage and things like that. We know a lot of the players and we understand roughly how they'll set up and how they'll try and play. So it's just about being prepared and making sure we're ready to go for it.
Well documented about the teenagers you played at the weekend. For you, how important is it that there's a pathway for kids here?
Yeah, I'll stress it again. I think first and foremost, if I isolate it to myself, it's really important that there's a pathway for young players at a football club to make their way through. I believe in this dynamic of a first team. So with that, you have experience, you have that kind of middle group of guys that are maybe towards the peak of their career. But I always think that the energy, the drive, and the desire is kind of pushed from the bottom, if you like. And that's been a make-up, and it probably comes from my pathway within academy development football and having such a passion for it. Even as a first-team manager, sometimes I need to put myself in check and make sure that all my focus goes on the first team, because at times I can see my mind and my eyes drifting towards what's coming through and the players that are coming through, and making sure that there is a plan for them and making sure that they have an identity. And I'll probably give you an example on that with one young player in particular, and the more I watch him, and we'll actually do a wee bit of individual work with him today, and yesterday we did as well. I need to profile him and what I think he can become, and by that I always think that a great example of it is to show them the player that you think from the past, and that's, I'm not going to give you the specifics of the player that I'm talking about in our group or the player from the past, but I've actually tasked him with going away and having a look at some footage individually. We'll do some work with him again today, and that's the very first step in him becoming the player that I think he can become. And I think that that's really important. It does sound as if it's a bit of a tale about how we can, develop a player, but they need to be able to see the credentials and the skill set that they've got and what that can become and how it can formulate a career. So that's massive for me. But if I relate it back to the football club, and I said this to our guys after the game, post-match, I'd spoke about the identity of this football club. For me, this is Motherwell's a football club that produces its own players and has a proud history of doing that. And I think it's my job to try and make sure that there's a pathway for that to happen. I think there's a couple of things in it as well, and far from me to go out and cast up and start calling people out. I'm not scared to play young players, I keep saying this, and that's not to pitch myself above anybody else. I genuinely not, because at the end of the day, footballers are human beings, and I think sometimes I've seen it in the past, managers and coaches can sit there all pent up and panicking that a young player might make a mistake. So can a 33-year-old, so can a 35-year-old. What if the young player makes a mistake? I see it as the first step to recovering from it, learning from it, and becoming a better football player. So that's always how I've looked at it, and it's not to be blasé about it, but I know the people that come and follow us here at Motherwell want to see their own players coming through and the exciting emerging talent, and I think what it does is it produces a real good feel-good factor about your football club. So it's always been something I've believed in, and it's always been my intention to try and make sure that there is a pathway here.
Obviously the cup games have come pretty early doors, your squad's not fully assembled for the new season. Based on what you're saying there, then will you be fully comfortable throwing in young kids coming the league starts?
Yeah, I think we showed that tail end of last season. You know, young Lennon played, made his first start for the football club at 16 years old. You know, we've had guys like Ferrie, Luca Ross, Ewan Wilson have all been well documented, but you probably forget that Ewan Wilson's been through a full season, 30 plus games for Albion Rovers last season. So again, there's different ways to do it. Some lads jump straight from the academy into your first team. Some lads go through that experience of 30, 40, 50 games to build up into that. So we've kind of got 3 or 4 that are all different stages. Some, if I'm being honest with you, we had a look at it, knowing that they were going to be in the first team group, to see how they fly when they're in amongst it. So again, there's that kind of 3 elements of where do we pitch them at that point? Do they go back into the academy because that's where they are? Do we put them out on loan, or do they become a part of our first team squad? I can't answer that question at the start of pre-season. I have an idea where I think it's going to go, but it's up to these guys to go and prove and show that they're capable of dealing with the demands of first team football. And I think it's not just a token gesture or for effect. I played the guys on Saturday because I felt that they were in a position to play, and they'd showed me enough in pre-season that they can cope with the demands of first team football, but also they can offer us something. And trying to get that fine line between, you know, not killing them in terms of their career or their confidence, and making sure you get the timing right, is very important as well.
Just given the landscape of football at the moment, when you see so many young players being, you know, attracted down to England, is that always a concern in the back of your mind that as soon as a player starts doing well, that clubs might come sniffing about at the age of 16, 17?
No, again, two aspects in it. I don't play them, and everybody complains and says that we've got young talent there and I'm not giving them a chance, or I play them, they do very well, the club maybe profits from it, and you know, so how do you look at it? What's the right and what's the wrong? I happen to think that the latter is the correct way to go. If they're good enough, if I feel they're going to offer something, then, as I say, it is my duty to step up and play them and select them and show trust in them, but also guide them through it as well. You know, you don't just put somebody into a first team and tell them that they're playing in a position and hope for the best. It's my job to analyse it post-match and show them where they were good, where they can improve, and put demands on them as well. You know, make them robust enough to deal with that environment where, if they have made a mistake or if they're getting something wrong in the game, they need to be able to deal with the rigours of a senior player, maybe calling them out, myself, getting after them, because that is part and parcel of the game. It's not the aspect of bullying or anything like that. It's wishing the best on them, which then in turn has the best on the football club. So again, I would always pitch them in if they're ready. If that then means that a bigger club steps up and takes them, then that, such is the circle of life. You know, that's how it goes. And again, I'm not being blasé. We want to keep them here as long as we possibly can. But I would love somebody to tell me it's a different way, that for the vast majority of football clubs in Scotland, that you're a selling club. That's what you are. I've referenced Ajax in the past. I've been doing it for, 30 plus years, all my lifetime. A club like Ajax produce their own players, they develop them, they sell them, and then that just keeps circulating from there. And I don't think that we're any different. I think, in fact, it's a brilliant business model for a football club in Scotland. But, you know, you could probably make that case last season, for the chunk of games last season, with the several guys that have now attracted so much attention. You know, your Kevin Van Veens, your Dean Cornelius, your Max Johnson, all these types of guys, Sean Goss, all these guys attracted attention because they were performing well here. That's how it goes.
You mentioned earlier on that there was likely to be one addition, or you thought there might be one addition for the squad this weekend. Is that through a transfer that you're hoping to do, or is that someone returning from injury? No,
we're hoping to get one across the line. Hopefully today. Again, I'm not say too much on it until such times it's rubber stamped. But I would be hopeful that I could add one player to the group that travelled to Elgin, and it just gives us another wee bit of balance and gives us another option in a certain position in the park. And as I say, once that comes about, hopefully that's today. Then we'll obviously confirm that as a football club.
How much more business do you see yourself doing before the end of the window?
I would like to add to areas. I think that certainly defensively we look as if we've got good options. I think we're pretty decently set in the middle of the park. I think we need to maybe add one or two to wide positions, and I think we need to add one or two to forward positions. Again, how much I can do will be subject to a number of factors, but yeah, I always sit there with players on a tactics board, and I sit and I'm always working towards having at least that sort of two options in each area of the park. I think most people will see a lot of time we've played with four strikers, played with two strikers, but within that you kind of want four options as well. So I think it is about being patient and not just bringing players into the football club just purely on the basis that they're available. They have to fit into what we've got, the environment in our dressing room, but they also have to be able to add something on the pitch. And I'm not, again, just going to bring in a player just because it's another number, because he's available. It has to be that they really offer us something.
Stuart, without naming the guy, just sort of help us later on when if you do announce it, can you just tell us what this player will bring to your squad?
I just think a bit of experience, a balance again to the team, and probably just a second option in an area of the park, whether that's the first option or the second option. But it's just going to be an area of the park that we identified that we had to bring in another player, because again I've referenced the fact that a number of players that have sort of left off the back of last season, so I think it will be evident to most kind of football people the areas that we're short at this minute in time, and I've known that for a long enough spell. That's again certainly not a criticism of the guys that we've got here in the building, because we've got good players, we've got good experience, we've got good youth, but we just need to add to it because it's a long old season, and we have to make sure that at no point are we kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel and not giving ourselves a foundation to try and win games of football.